right, can you hear me? Welcome. All right, no problem. If you missed last night, no big deal. We had some people in there, and I guess that's kind of what we talked about in lecture last night. Was that's the pro of being a online student is you can listen to the recording. Were you able to listen to the recording? The reason why I'm asking is because not sure. Okay. I'm not sure if you guys were aware there was a big YouTube shutdown last night, and I was trying to process the video after the lecture, and the whole the website was down. So I had to embed the actual recording in a different way. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try, because I think it's up now, I'll go ahead and process that the regular way for the lecture one, and I'll resubmit it in there so you guys can see it in the normal way, because I believe YouTube is up now. Yep, no problem. I just didn't get a chance today. I was pretty busy. Well, welcome. This is week 1 live lecture 2. And like I said, you probably missed a lot from yesterday. So once you kind of listen to the first recording, everything will kind of make a little bit more sense probably today, hopefully. And we'll clarify a lot of questions that you may have. I went through just a review of the principles of design, besides introducing myself and showing the classroom. Went through the principles of design, did a little bit of an overview of things to think about when you're designing for a magazine. We're going to be talking a little bit today about that as well. And then we also did a discussion 1 review overview, and the demo started for assignment 1. So what I'm going to be doing today, and let's go forward here, just a couple announcements before we get into the nitty-gritty stuff. And deadlines are important, especially in this class, because your project for this class is going to be a build upon project. So it's going to be a continuation every week. You're going to be building upon every week. You're going to be doing 2 pages for your 8-page magazine. Yep. So I guess the issue is, and this, can be for any type of class, but especially for this one, if you get behind and you don't turn in your work on time, you're going to lose that, and I say precious, but that like very important review time where you're getting that feedback and revising your work so that you can start on the next 2 pages. And once you start getting behind, you start kind of, getting overwhelmed, and you might rush things, and you might not be revising the way you should be, and then your work suffers. So try to definitely get everything turned in on time. Yes, exactly. It just becomes overwhelming. But if you do it, step by step, take every day, and just try to get everything done, mini goals during the week, getting your work in on time will really, really make a huge impact, not on just your learning experience, but also your quality of work. So it is very hard to get, especially with a 4-week class. So just make sure you're getting your posts in, your initial posts in. Actually, tonight's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. So before midnight tonight, get that in. This has been a crazy week for me so far. So I'm like, my head is spinning. And then I think I just deleted the 2. Sorry about that. Assignment 1 and assessment 1 is due before midnight on, should say Saturday. I think I deleted a little bit too much text there. So this Saturday before midnight, those 2 projects are due as well. Do you have any questions, concerns? And I know you, Lisa, you came in here and you didn't listen to the first recording, so you probably have a lot of questions, but I guess you have any questions that you could bring up that, are about this class, or anything that you have concerns about? Not yet. Okay. And this goes for people who are listening to the recording. If you do have any concerns or questions, just reach out to me. I'm here to help you guys. I'm not here to judge you or like evaluate you all the time. I'm here to help you, guide you. If you're having issues, I want you to reach out to me. The quicker that you can reach out to me, the quicker and more flexible I can be with you guys. So just kind of check, reach out to me. I'm here to help you. I want you to succeed in this class. All right. So today we're going to be going over your Assessment 1 overview, and we're going to do a little bit of a conclusion of where we were last night. So if you stuck around yesterday and listened to the recording or were there live, we kind of ended. I kind of get too involved in this stuff, and we went a little bit over time, but I didn't quite finish up the process of how you would package and zip your file when you're done. So I'm going to go over a couple things before that too that we didn't get to as well for your Assignment 1. And then we're going to go right into your Assessment 1 overview and demo. And then if you have anything that you want to show, if anybody pops in here, want to talk about anything, we can definitely do that. So this might be kind of a shorter class. I guess we'll see what happens. Before we actually get into all the nitty-gritty stuff too, we're going to talk about these 7 helpful tips of designing magazine ads. A lot of the times, and in this class, you're really not going to be designing ads, but when you're designing for a publication, say you're a publication designer, you do design ads sometimes that, clients come to the publication for and say they don't have a graphic designer to do it. They come to you for it. So, or you could be an ad designer. You can work for an ad agency or a freelance designer and be designing ads that will be placed into magazines. So that's, 2 scenarios for sure. So let's talk about this. So if you are advertising in a magazine, then there are different ways to make sure that the advert, so the advertisement, works for you as well as possible. Assuming your message and your offer has been decided, it is important that the design of your advert works well. So here's some tips to think about. And like I said, you guys aren't going to be designing ads, but something to think about whenever you do. Suitability for the magazine audience. Think about where the ad should be placed target audience wise. You wouldn't be placing, say, an ad that's for like a funeral home in, some kind of what would be an opposite of a funeral home? Maybe like a first like childhood magazine. So, think about, the target audience, who is your target audience? Once you know that, baby magazine, there you go. You want, that obviously is going to lean towards certain magazines that would be, the target audience would be more leaning towards. So, if you have, exactly, yep. Like an Adidas ad would be what? Sports magazines, right? Or fit magazines, fitness magazines, more of a sports related magazines, athletic stuff. So that's key. And sometimes we think, that's kind of like, you should know that already, but sometimes people don't. So you really have to think about that. Okay. Another tip is right-hand side is preferred over the left. And what that means is that's kind of where the eye goes. So, right here kind of shows you a double page spread or just a horizontal ad with the lower right-hand corner being kind of where that branding and the wordage is. Okay. Yeah. So, it's not really kind of talking about the left and the right-handed people. It's just talking about how you read. So you really go from the left to the right. Your eye usually goes from the left to the right when you read. So exactly. So the right-hand side is kind of like I always say it's kind of like the send-off. The last message that you want people to get in their head, they see that focal point image and then they go right to the message area with the branding. Or it could be a call out, with a website or something like that to kind of keep that in mind. Resolution is also something to think about. When you're dealing with different magazines and publications, you're dealing with not only printed publications, but also online publications. So obviously the lower res is more for web ads. So 72 DPI dots per inch would be for that. Print ad would be more for, 300 dots per inch. Now there are instances where you might be designing an ad for, say, a newsprint or newspaper magazine, and the dots per inch could be a little different because it's not, the paper quality is a little different. So it's really important to make sure that you're checking in with your printer and also the specs for the publication to get that information. So resolution is super important. Include your call to action. We just talked about that. So, if you have this beautiful ad and your message is right there, but then there's no call to action, what's the point of it, right? So a call of action is what you want the reader to do next. Do you want them to check it out? Do you want them to check out a website, schedule, buy a product, call? So those are types of call, get this product now, buy this now, phone number. So that's the call to action. Choose images wisely. Sometimes we, you have to think about not only is the ad appropriate for the magazine, but is it going to work next to maybe whatever ads that are going to be in there? Now that's sometimes something that you won't know unless you see it before it goes to print. Will it fit in the ad's theme, overall theme? Just choosing images wisely is important so that you are, appropriately placing these into the publications where they're not, going to be they won't stand out too much, it won't have bad negative connotations, and they fit in relatively cohesively with everything else going on, but kind of stick out too in their own good way as far as being memorable. Use space well, kind of utilizing the space, and that's just kind of goes for anything. In a layout, you want to make sure that you're making it so that the viewers, has a focal point to go to. The hierarchy is set right where, where they're kind of seeing it all, the products, the message kind of all goes hand in hand. It's not too much information, so that you get to the point quicker. Test the advert, having it tested. For instance, kind of printing it out beforehand just to see if it works is one way you can test it. Another way is, I know as when I was a graphic designer for an ad agency, a publication company, we would send out proofs so you could see it and where it's actually placed beforehand and get the okay, from your client if that looks okay. We had a lot of the times, and you wouldn't think about this, but a lot of the times I worked for an automotive aftermarket magazine in Ohio. I worked for several other magazines in Florida, just Tampa Bay Wellness, Style Magazine. And there's a lot of ads that are competitors of each other, like brands that are competitors that don't even want to be side by side on, on the same page. Yeah, so you have to think about that. And, they will get mad at you if you place them together. And sometimes you don't even know it until it's in there. So you have to kind of be mindful of that. Sometimes you just don't know until it happens, and then obviously learn from that experience. But testing the advert is always good, kind of printing it out beforehand to make sure everything's readable, it looks good, but then also proofing it to making sure that it looks good within the space that you're placing it in. Sometimes ads get shifted around because, the last minute ads get pulled or more ads get placed in at the last minute before the magazine goes to print. So there's been a lot of cases when I've had that happen. So a couple of things to think about if you are designing ads for magazines. Is, like I said, you guys won't be dealing with that in this class, but, you may be at one point designing for an ad that will be placed in a magazine, or you'll be designing for a publication. So some things to think about. All right, as we go forward here, let's take a look. Sorry, chatted something here and I lost you're welcome. So just a little review. Let's go to assignment 1. And like I said, Lisa, we went over, I kind of got started. We reviewed all of this. I read everything out loud, showed you everything that's included in here. And then what I did was a step-by-step demo on how to set everything up here. So everything that you see in yellow is kind of what I went over yesterday. The only thing that I didn't go over, and it does look like a lot of information, but I think once you see the step-by-step demonstration, it helps. The only thing that I didn't review is how to submit. And I wanted to show that because sometimes, you know, students kind of forget, or they forget certain things about before you package it, what you should do. So I wanted to go over that as well. All right, so let me open up where we left off last night real quick here. Like I said, I went over master pages. I went over style sheets. I went over grid layout, you know, kind of how to start this. And you know, yours doesn't have to look like mine. It shouldn't look like mine. Yeah, but you know, I'm kind of doing this so you guys can understand how to, you know, how to approach the project. Yeah, you'll be fine. You know, I think if you listen to my recording, hopefully everything will kind of make sense and it'll be more clear, so you can kind of get started and won't be as stressed, because I went through very clearly, I believe, on how to create the page numbers at the bottom in your master pages, how master pages work, and also the style sheets. So yeah, it's a very important recording to listen to. So what we did, and you can see here, I started, we're going to be designing for page 2. Okay, good. So I showed you how to set up, you know, all 8 pages at first. I showed you how to start page 2 with the article imagery and how to leave the space for the table of contents, a little signifier at the top, because page 2 is going to continue on page 7. So you guys just have to worry about page 2 and page 7. This is the letter from the editor. And then just laying this out so it kind of looks cohesive. The type is set, baselines are aligned, hierarchy is set, your style sheets are set. That's kind of what I'm going to look for. And everything fits very nicely. It's readable. You know, there's not too much space other than the top here, which is okay. Left over at the end, you know, it's very well balanced. So I'm going to go over a few things, pretending like you went through the first lecture of what we didn't go over last night. All right, so the one thing I wanted to show you is, if you were interested, and not everybody does this, is the drop cap for the very beginning letter of the article. That's usually only when you do it, is the beginning of the article, but you don't necessarily have to have a drop cap, but I just wanted to show you how to create that. Yes, the first letter. So what you would do is you're going to go into your style sheets, and we're going to pull up your paragraph styles here. All right, see all my paragraph styles. These are all the ones that I created yesterday, so you know, kind of take note of that. So we're going to go up to the very top options preset, and we're going to choose new paragraph style, and we're going to call this drop cap in the style name. We're going to keep everything the same. The only thing that we're going to change, go to drop caps way down here, it says drop caps and nested styles, is we're going to make sure previews check so we can see it actually happening when we do apply it, which we won't see it until we actually apply it. So we're going to drop it down. Usually it's 2 lines and 1 character. That's the typical way to do it. Now you can also make, I mean, sometimes it's even more. You can even do more lines, you know, make it bigger. But typically it's like a 2:1 ratio. You can make it bold, even make it the same typeface as your heading, not necessarily like your body copy. So it's more bold. Maybe the color is, color down here is how you can change your character color. Say that blue color, and click OK. Now once you create it, you have to select it in order to apply it. So right now my body copy is selected. I want to choose drop cap. Now the only issue with this is it's going to make all of my copy affected here. So what we need to do is something a little different. So I'm going to show you this real quick. I'm going to go to body copy again. what we need to do is a character style. Remember how I said paragraph style, and I know you were in here, paragraph styles is good for a lot of words, so body copy. Character styles is great for, you know, one word or one letter. So we're going to select that. We're going to do new character style, and we're going to do drop cap. Okay, it's a character. Oh. All right. Click OK. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually make this a drop cap through our settings here. So let me bring up my character palette. And what we're going to do, okay, where's my paragraph? Sorry, paragraph palette. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is go to paragraph panel, which is under your window, and we're going to choose the drop cap feature here, which is right here. If you put your cursor over it's intuitive, it'll tell you what it is, drop cap number of lines, and it'll give you this option to do more or less, whatever. And then what you can do here is use the settings to change, you know, if you wanted to maybe be bold and change the color. So let's bring the color over here, swatches. Yeah, so you might run into that where it's affecting the whole page. And then we're going to select drop cap so that your character style is set. Oops, let me throw this in here so you can see what I'm doing. All right, throw this back in here. Paragraph styles, throw this back in there. All right, so if you wanted to do a drop cap, that's how you would do it. Now, another thing that I wanted to go over, which I didn't go over the last time. See these spaces in between here? In between your paragraphs? Okay, those are actually spaced. It's spaces like on your keyboard. So if I were to take that, if I were to hit right where the subhead and hit delete, that's an actual return right there. If I wanted to be really consistent about this, and this takes a little bit of work, I'm going to delete those spaces out of there. Just delete it so that I have no spaces. I'm going to go back to this. Delete the spaces in here, like right here. Delete. Now, I'm going to go to my paragraph styles, and we created a body copy style sheet here. So go to body copy. Oops, I won't do that because I actually changed that subhead, sorry. Go to your body copy, double click on body copy style sheet, and with the preview selection, you can kind of see when it's applied here. I'm going to have this little column available. I'm going to go to indents and spacing. Yep, you got it. And what I'm going to choose is space after. So you see space after here. And I'm just going to select, I'm going to go hit this arrow key up one time. And you can see the spaces that it creates anytime there's a return or a next line. I would say don't go more than 0.25, but I think a good even space is maybe a 0.125. So 0.125 would be good. Click OK. And then what I would do is just go ahead and delete, and I forgot to do this too, delete any of the spaces after the subheads, because we don't really want that space to be there too. So right here, right where before the copy starts, what you want to do is do a shift return, delete that space, and do a shift return, which is a soft return, to get that to kind of go down there. And what that does is just kind of allows you to adjust the spacing in here a little easier once you do get that in there. So again, I'm going to put my cursor here, hit delete, and then just do a shift return, which is a soft return. It's a little bit more work, but what's nice about this is you can always go and change this if you need, you know, different spacing. That's maybe more spacing or less spacing in between each one. These two to do a return. I'm just doing a delete, return, return tab. Shift return is important. If you just do a return, it's going to have the big gap. Can you adjust the spacing after the subhead from the paragraph style too? Yes. Shift return, you just hold down the shift and then the return button. Yep. That's a soft return. It's not a hard return. That's super important. So if you don't want, that paragraph to be affected by that change, you would do a soft return. So you just asked a really good question. So I'm going to go up to show you just what you just asked there. Exactly. Yep. Well, it's things that you kind of learn as you go forward, right? So double click on body copy, and you just asked about the spacing after the subhead. So what I would do here is I would actually click on my subhead style sheet that I said. Oh, did somebody pop in here? Hi, Jennifer. Sorry, I missed you here. I was kind of in my mode here. Go to your subhead style sheet. Go to your indents and spacing. And actually, it's already set at 0.125. This would be after the subhead. So actually, what we could have done is put that to 0, and that probably would have eliminated that space that, kind of what we just did. We set this at 0. Let me see here. Let me hit tab. Oh, that's doing it the space after. It's actually affecting it too on my subhead. Interesting. I think it's because, you know what, I took out those spaces. That's probably why it's not doing anything. So if I were to have a space after each, it probably would show that. Yep, it was an easy fix. Yep. So that's something that you can definitely play around with. Another thing is, let's say you don't want to, yes, soft return or paragraph style. Yep. So let's say you want to put an indent, and typically it's kind of nice to not have an indent, but sometimes people like the indents for the first paragraph of every, typically this is how it goes. If you don't have this space in between here, this nice big space in between here, you usually have an indent, especially if it's like no subhead here and it's the next paragraph, because you can see right here how that could look weird. So if, say for instance, you didn't have the subhead and this line was up here, let me do that so you can understand what I'm saying here. Let's delete this subhead. You could set your body copy. You can center yep, you can center it, yep. But typically if you have a subhead, the indents look weird. So I would probably just do the spacing, yeah. But let's just say you're working, and you might be doing an article in the next few weeks that might call for this. Although you want to keep it consistent too. You don't want to have indents on one article and none on the other. So kind of think about that. So I'm going to just double click on body. Oops, that's a mistake. Don't have your cursor in there as you're clicking in there. Just select off, then go to body copy, and then go to indents and spacing. Hit the preview button so you can see on the left side. And then first indent would be selected if you wanted an indent. So I'm going to put 0.25. And again, I took out the spaces, but if I had a space here, let me do a space. And it's giving me my drop cap here too, which I have to get rid of. But you can see the indent going on here. The drop cap should not be here though. Let me take out the drop cap. There we go. Okay. So it's all messed up. It's all messing my stuff up here now. Let's select this and let's do apply body copy. There we go. It's going to look like this without the space. I have to take the spacing out too, and I didn't do that. So let's take the spacing out. Spacing to 0, just so you can see how the indent looks. Yeah. Yeah. So Jennifer, I like to do most of the work through paragraph styles because otherwise you're going to have to go through each individual paragraph to change them. Fine for one page, but not for mass text. So like with this, you can hit the tab, but I prefer to go. Yep. Yeah, and you shouldn't have to be doing those type of changes. That's kind of what the style sheets are for. Makes you more efficient as a designer. And once you kind of understand that and work with them, you'll kind of know, oh yeah, this makes sense. This is so much easier, especially if you're working in like a, because typically the magazines I work for are over 100 pages long. So you're not going to be, it's like not an 8-page magazine. It's going to be like at least 60, for a minimum, but no problem. Sometimes it just happens. I show you kind of the real world, what's going on here. Another thing to kind of keep in mind are your rags. Do you guys know what rags are? Rags, okay, the right side, yeah. So it's kind of like how if you have left justified copy or even right justified copy, it's how, as long as it's not totally justified, it's just, I guess not totally, but just justified where it's kind of meeting flush right and flush left. You're going to have a rag, which is kind of the white space that kind of forms the positive and negative space of where your copy forms. So you want to kind of make sure you have a nice flow. Nothing's kind of big gaps. And like for instance here, I probably would bump the R down because there's usually a typical thing where if there's kind of like a hanging word here, I just saw, yeah, or a hyphen, yep. You kind of want to bump that down so it just kind of looks a little bit more smooth down here and it's not just hanging out there. This is not so bad. Let's go back to this page and see. So go through all of your type. This is, what do you guys call this? Do you know what this is called when you have one word at the very end of a paragraph? Yep, a widow. Not good. So yeah, widows are not good. So what you want to do is just kind of bump down 1 or 2 words. I'm going to do a shift return here. When I do that, it may affect some of the things up here. You have a hyphen going on, so I might do a shift return there. My is now kind of not supported, so I'm going to bump that down. So you might kind of find yourself in this, I have to shift return some other things down. So just kind of massaging that text, and that kind of works a little bit better. It's just nice to have a more balanced line at the very end. Yeah, you can turn hyphens off for sure. That's in your preferences. Right here is another widow. It's okay to have hyphens, just as long as you don't have double hyphens and it's not happening on the last line. I just did a shift return there. This is kind of weird here. I'm going to do a shift return here. That kind of helps my hyphen that was out here. Shift return is kind of what I'm doing to fix these. Here's a weird gap here. I might want to do a shift return here. Now that's going to cause my 2 hyphens. So I'm going to do shift return here. Kind of balancing everything. So you kind of get what I'm doing. Now the only thing with this is now my copy. So you do shift return always. Yes. Now this could come back to, I might need to, once I shift this up, because look how I have copy that's kind of, it's telling me my copy shifted down a line. I need to pull this up a little bit. Once I pull this up, my copy might shift and my spacing might kind of get wonky. So I just have to pay attention to that after I kind of made those shift returns. So as you're shifting your text, because you're making it work, you might have some things going on here. Like for instance, I just pushed this up. What's this called that just happened that we shouldn't have? So we talked about widows. Now what's this called? This is like typography 101 here. Orphan. Good job, Jen. Yep. And this is a whole line, but it's still not a no-no because you don't really want an orphan. An orphan's like 1 line on the 2nd column. Yep. Good job. So what I would do in this instance, I would pull this up either more, or I would actually pull this up more. Let's see if that's actually going to change anything here. Probably not. Yeah. So I'm going to have to shift this up another line. And that kind of, I think this is going to pop it up here. There we go. And I have that baseline selected, the baseline alignment, so that nothing gets shifted in a weird way there. I just have some spacing issues here, but what I could do to fix that, to kind of balance that out, is pull my my image box down. As long as I have that text wrap that I showed you guys how to do, I'm good. And then I'm just gonna go up to object fitting, fill frame to fill that space. And there you go, it's like more balanced there. So it's kind of like shifting of things to make it work. So now that's kind of what that looks like. Okay, so those are some things. Oh, I see some other things I could fix here, but you get the point, hopefully, on how to do that. Thanks. Another thing that I didn't get to yesterday was, and let me go, because I want to show you this option, you don't have to do it, is I showed you how to make these folio with the page number in your master pages. But I didn't show you, you can actually put a rule above a line. Kind of makes a nice separation between the folio and what's shown above here. So if you go to pages on your page panel, now the only way you can edit your folio, which is on your master page, is to double click on your master page, right? We talked about that. Exactly, Jennifer. Yep, you got it. Sorry, I didn't get to that, but all right. So I want to show you how to put a line above this, a little line. And we made a style sheet for this folio. And now I have all my stuff out here. Let me pull this over. So I'm going to go to styles, I'm going to go to paragraph styles, and I'm going to go to where it says folio. Double click. And this opens up my settings. What I could do, and what you can do if you want to try this, is put a rule above. So all you need to do is go to your rules. And give me a sec here. There we go, paragraph rules. And you want to do a rule above, because you want to do it above the rule line is the actual straight line. You want to do it above the folio. So I'm going to click on to set that. And I'm going to do it real thin. So I'm going to do like a 0.5 thickness of the line. You can choose a different line characteristic if you want. You can do dotted, solid, triple. It's completely up to you. I'm just going to do solid. You can even give it a color. So I can do that blue color if I want. The other thing that I want to do, I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to look at it. Now the rule isn't quite set where I want it. I need it to be way above that, right? So I'm going to double click back on that folio. I'm going to go back to my page rules, and I'm going to go where it says offset. And let me pull this over a little bit. I can't see. I'm going to set this to 0.25, I believe. Or actually, let's go a little lower. 0.1875, click OK. And now it's setting my ruler above and kind of giving a nice little separation between my folio and the body copy above. Well, your added colors pop up there. Yep. Yep. Now I'm going to go back to my pages and see how that works. I might need to shift things around. And this will kind of be a nice test to see if your copy is a little bit too close, right? So this is kind of why I said to set up your guides so you have a little bit of a thicker margin down below. I would say this is okay. I would say I probably would bump this up a little bit more. For the space, I would probably say probably about there. So I have a little bit more space. Now I'm going to have to shift this too, just keep it consistent. And I'm just going to push this up. And then that's going to affect my lines. Now that's going to affect all of my lines here. So I just have to make sure I'm running through, making sure everything looks good. Yes. So just make sure if your copy is ending right here on this baseline, and let me go to my normal view here. Right here is where all my baselines need to end on every page. So I don't want to see this, and let me pull this over here. I don't want to see this ending here on this page, you know, having another line under here and then this ending up here. This, when you, even if it's a different article on this page, it should all be ending on that same baseline. Yep, should all be equal. And that's how picky you need to be. And that, it doesn't matter if it's the same article, different article, it needs to all align. So just kind of be aware of that. All right, so everything looks good, I think. Now we're ready to save this. Like I said, I didn't go over this. I went over everything else yesterday. I mean, yeah, you could do that because I didn't quite go over that yesterday, and that kind of might, you know, allow you to shift the type so it's not too close and you're not doing double work. For sure, yep. But sometimes that happens and then you kind of work through it and then make sure everything's consistent. All right, so for this assignment, you're going to go up to File, Package. You're not going to worry about all the other empty pages because you're just worried about 2 and 7. Now, this is just going to tell me what's going on in this package folder, what fonts I've used in this file. So you can kind of take a look and see if everything looks good. Now, if I were doing this for a print magazine, I would have to make sure that all of these images aren't JPEGs, they're TIFFs for print. You usually do export in Photoshop all of your images in TIFF form because they're the best quality files that you can have printed. JPEGs are a little bit more of a condensed, it's a condensed file where you're not using as many pixels. It's a different type of a file. It's good for kind of placement, but once you're ready to print, those would be converted to TIFF files. Color inks, everything else looks good. So I'm just going to hit package, continue. Those instructions would be if you're, you know, working and sending the file to somebody who might be working on that same file. And then just kind of keep in mind, everything here should be checked, including your PDF. The only thing is with this option is you cannot really make your PDF. So what would be one of the first things we should do with the images? You typically you would go in, you know, if you're designing, if you're doing it for a web, you won't have to worry about, well, you might have to worry about converting it to 72 dots per inch. You would take the images into Photoshop and saving them as TIFFs. And I can show you that real quick here. That is a good habit to get into. The include PDF print preset, if you're choosing this, which I want you guys to, it's not going to do facing pages. It's going to be like one page after another, and I'll show you in a second here. Just make sure all of these are selected. I can show you kind of how to redo this if you don't want to go that route where you're kind of saving it with facing pages. I'll show you that in a second here. All right, let me share my desktop. Let's see here. Okay, so I just threw it on my desktop. Here's my folder. And in here, you'll see my native file. Maybe, there we go. You'll see my native file, my PDF that I just did, document fonts, and my links included. That's all should be in there. Now, if you double click, I would say double click on your PDF just to take a look at it. Now the first page is going to be blank. And this is what I was talking about with it not being printer spreads. So it's going to be vertical pages instead of like a spread, facing pages spreads. So what I would say is once you package this, go ahead and throw out that PDF. Do you remember this? Go back to your native file, go up to File, PDF Presets, and we're just going to do it manually. And I would say smallest file size is fine. I'm going to save this to my desktop. So you're just making another PDF, but just doing it outside of the package process. And then the one thing to kind of keep in mind, you want all pages selected and then choose spreads. This is where you can't choose it when you're saying add it to your packaged file. So once you do that, it's going to save it to the desktop. Here it is right here. I'm going to double click on it just to show you what it looks like in comparison. And this will become more important next week when you're actually designing the right side and the left side, like spreads, because I want to see them kind of side by side. It's really important because you want to see how they flow, especially if they're like a double page spread article. But this is kind of how you should be doing it. I don't know, actually, that's a really good question. I think there might be presets. Let me see if there's preferences. Let me look into that because I don't know. That's a great question though. Yeah, let me look into that because I'll be like searching all around. Print presets. There might be a print preset here. Let's see. Yeah, there probably is one. Let me look into that and get back to you. I don't want to spend like all this time, but that is something definitely to look into. Let me go to package real quick and just see if maybe print settings. Yeah, this would just be for print. So, okay, I'll check that out for sure. But then what I would do, I mean, in the meantime, while I'm looking for that great question, just go ahead and dump that into that folder. So now you have the new PDF in there ready to go. And then you either hold down Control click and choose compress, or select the folder and say file compress. And then this is the zip file that you'll be submitting. And if you do a Command I, if you're on a Mac, that kind of tells you your file size. So it's 9.6 megabytes. Any questions about that other than what I need to look into as far as the presets? And like I said, I went over everything that we kind of involved this assignment last night. So if you missed that, definitely check that out. No questions? Okay. With that being said, I'm going to close out of here. I'm going to go back to our back home here. All right, so we're going to go right into your assessment here, right over this. So the mysterious power of grids is kind of what we're going to be discovering here in your assessment. What I want you to do is kind of read through this. It talks about ruler guides, guidelines, column guides, baseline grid, and document grid. And we kind of talked about some of these. Baseline grid we talked about, column guides. We also talked about guidelines, creating custom grids using ruler guides. We did that as well yesterday. Ruler guides, we did that yesterday as well. Document grid I can show you today. And like I said, baseline grid we went over yesterday as well. So in this prompt, so read over the background. In the prompts, now that you are familiar with several types of grids, I'm going to zoom in here so you can see. There we go. Share my desktop here. Sorry about that. All right. Now that you're familiar with several types of grids and can differentiate between effective and ineffective grid use when communicating with the end user, it's time to put your knowledge to the test. Here are your instructions. So for this assessment, you will redesign an existing advertisement using a well-defined grid structure to enhance visual hierarchy. Differentiate between effective and ineffective grid use and explore multiple options to amplify and to improve your design concepts. Your grid should make the content easy for the end user to understand. Use your space well and keep in mind there are many possible and viable solutions to this creative challenge. Use InDesign only. The size is 8.5 by 11 portrait format. You're going to download this folder. Download this right now as we're talking. In this folder, and I'll open this up once we get through this here, you will find an example of the existing advertisement and the imagery used in the ad you're redesigning. All photos must be used. You may crop or resize any photo. Also included in the folder is a Word document containing the text for your creative grid challenge. You must use all of the text in the Word document. Apply a well-defined grid structure to enhance visual hierarchy. And then, of course, the exports here. You're going to export as a PDF. And I did forget to show you how to export those or convert the imagery in that last assignment 1 detail. So I'll go over that as well. Yes, it's very exciting. Very cool. So there's some examples here. And let me pull those up so you guys can see what's provided as examples in your class. Here's one. And you can kind of read the notes of the evaluation the instructor for this particular student kind of talked about here. And then this one is the other one. So they're kind of using that 1/3 rule there. Okay, so I downloaded the folder. This is kind of what I'm seeing here. The folder here has bananas, fruit, grapes. I'll pull this open a little bit. Oranges, strawberries, your Word file, and then the example. So what you're going to do is just kind of reorganize this in a different way using the text and everything you have going on there. So I'm going to go, let me go into my InDesign here. I'm going to share my desktop so you can see everything I'm doing. So you can do a file new document, and then we'll just do 8.5 by 11. And we're going to do 1 page. So change that, uncheck the facing pages, make sure you're in inches. Everything else should be good. I would probably set this to 0.5 on all margin spaces so it's consistent. And then choose create. So this is just like a little mini or an ad, a full page ad. All right, then what I'm going to do, let me pull this aside. I'm going to open up the Word file that's given to you guys. Let me take a minute here. And this is the Word file. So you're going to copy what's in here, do a select all, which is Command A, and then a Command C, which is copy. And go back to your InDesign file. You're going to take your type tool, and I would just say, just draw like a text box here just to start. You don't even have to worry about a grid right now. Do Command V, which is paste. Choose your selection box, and now you can kind of maybe pull this down wherever you want to go and just kind of leave it here for a second. All right, so the next thing that you may want to do is just pull in your images, and maybe what you could do is just place your images in by just placing the rectangle frame tool in here first on my desktop. And what I'm just going to do is just kind of copy and paste and place each image in here, and then I can play around with them. Or do an alt drag. It's like an alt copy, just so I can see everything that I have. Go up to object fitting, fill frame proportionately if you want to fill that frame proportionately that you created, so you can see the whole image. You can even pull these aside and do an alt drag. Oranges, object fitting. What's that, the fitting part? Yeah, object fitting, fill frame proportionately. I'm just kind of placing all of these in here. I think that's it, other than the example. I'm going to put the example in here too, just so I have it to kind of look off of. I'm going to pull this to the side so I can see what the example looks like and kind of redo it if I want to. All right, so have fun with this. Think about how can you make this different than what the original one looks like. Exactly. I'm going to save this first. So DES243 Assessment 1. Don't forget to save. Okay. So we know there's a hierarchy, and the hierarchy is important because that's kind of how you're telling the viewer where you want to look first, second, third, fourth. So if everything's the same equal emphasis, there's going to be visual confusion of where to look first, second, third. Then you'll lose interest, or people will be confused. They won't know where to look. It won't be, won't be easy to read. So that's why we have visual hierarchy, and that's why it's appropriate. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to have that set up so that it's easy to follow. So what's the most important thing? What's the focal point that you want to see first? It's probably the beautiful images of the fruit, right? So you can kind of play around with this. You have grids up here. So if you go up to view, grids and guides, you can show your baseline grid here. See if it's actually showing normal. Yeah. I don't actually have anything set. You can show your document grid. You can show you can actually snap to document grid as well. But these are kind of where you would find some of these. Now I'm going to hide my document grid because I kind of like to use my grids in my rulers. And again, if you don't have your rulers up, go up to Window, choose Rulers. I'm sorry, View, Show Rulers. Oops. And then you have these vertical ruler and a horizontal ruler. You can actually select into, click and drag down your margin guides. Okay, so you can actually set up your grid structure here in this way. So let's say I want to do this completely differently, and maybe I want to do the image at, let's see here, let me think about this. Maybe I want to do mostly the image at the bottom. Now I'm going to do, you never want to split a layout in half. Do you guys know why that is? So if I were to say, okay, I'm going to split this in half. So this is all going to be picture. And then this is going to be type. Why is that a bad thing? Why do you think? Yep, rule of thirds. So when you split anything in half, like a layout, an ad, anything in half, there's an automatic disconnect between the two elements. You're right. So what happens is this reads as one part, and then this reads as another part. So yeah, rule of thirds is kind of the way to go. So what I would do is either make the copy more of the space on the top or less of the space on the top, or vice versa. So the rule of thirds, would be if I were to make this, a little bit lower on the scale, and then my main copy would be up here. So I would draw a rule line wherever, say like 7 inches down below, and then everything else up here would be my copy. I can even have my imagery up here and kind of plan this out. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 squares up here. I was gonna do pics on them. Hey, you do whatever you want. You can try the side. Maybe I'm kind of screwing you up here. I'm taking your creative juices. So say I want to do 4 squares here. I'm going to do a shift and see if I can get 4 squares here. That's so funny. I'm just seeing if I can get 4 squares across here in a way that there's going to be enough space. It looks like maybe a little smaller. If I even pull these in a little bit. And I'm just creating this rhythm with these images too. We talked about the principles of design. Let me go to my align panel. This is very important. So I'm going to select all. I'm going to show you guys how to do this too. Go to object and layout align, and just align all of these middle areas here. What you're going to do is you're going to choose this button here, which is distribute objects, horizontal centers, repetition. Yep. Then I'm going to group these. So I'm going to go object group, and then I'm going to scale these down. So I can do it in one of 2 ways. I can either hold the shift key down and pull these in, or I can go over here and choose my scale tool, which is the S on your keyboard, double click on that and scale it down this way proportionately. I think it's a little easier if I hold the shift key down and I know I'm not, you can see where I'm pulling that into my margins here. Of course I say that and now it's not going. Go a little less than that. There we go. There you go. I'm going to ungroup this. And now I know kind of the size of the square. So I can actually pull down my margin to hit the bottom of this, pull my vertical margins to hit the corners of this so I know where every picture will be laid out. I'm just clicking, holding, releasing, click, drag, release. Okay, this is where it gets a little screwy right here. Right here is where I need to release. And then right here. Okay, it's because that picture got screwed up. You can click on one and just kind of move it over if you need to. There's something screwy going on with this one. All right, so now we can delete these. Yeah, there's something going on here with my box. Yeah, I think the image moved. All right, so now I can go fitting, fill frame proportionately. I can drag this over into this space. See how those guides are really nice? And you can zoom in on this too. Now I can hold the shift key down and pull this in. Oh, there's my baseline grid. I'm gonna get rid of that here. I think it's because I wasn't zoomed in enough. Fitting, fill frame proportionately. And then I'm gonna just drag these over and do the same thing. So I'm kind of using these as guides as well. Just kind of fit in here. Oops. So just have your bounding box that same size, fit, fill frame proportionately, and you'll be good. Where's my grid? Yeah, zooming in. Where's my grid? All right, there we go. So I have a nice, consistent, unifying imagery above here. So now I can go in here and start adjusting my copy. And you can set style sheets for this too if you want. You know, if you want to kind of get into that rhythm and that habit, you can definitely do that. You don't have to necessarily. I won't be going in here and checking your style sheets because it's just a one-page ad. But you know, it's completely up to you and how you want to go about what typeface that you're using for this. So I'm going to kind of leave that up to you guys, but I will not take points off if there's no paragraphs or style sheet. I'm sorry, style sheets applied. That's a good question. She was asking about strokes on it. Let me get to that in a second here. Alignment is important. Also leading. See how, I'll get to that in a second here. Yeah, that's a great question. See how the leading, do you guys know what leading is? The leading is the space in between these two lines of text, right? Yep. So I'm going to adjust that. Yep. So I'm going to go to character panel box. And here's my point size. I just changed it to. Here's my leading. So I can adjust this. Now, the only bad thing is right now, I think this is actually, is this on a style sheet? Let me see here. Do I have style sheets in here? No, I don't. Okay, good. Okay, it's acting like it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take this out of here. I'm going to copy and delete this out so I have more control over it. So I have a completely different copy box so I can kind of shift things up here. Sometimes leading can get kind of crazy in headlines when you're dealing with that included in your body copy. Yeah, you could adjust it in the style sheet, but you know, I don't have a style sheet set up for this. So now if I just paste this into its own text box, look how I can actually easily edit this now. I'm going to do centered align, completely up to you. Just make sure you're, you know, why is it important to eat fruit? You're kind of, you know, making it break in a way that makes sense. You can kind of play around with that. And then always look over, you know, what's the example show? How did they do it? Looks like here in the example, they have it broken down in the health benefits as its own section, which is kind of smart to do. So maybe in this case, because I am centering everything, let's center my copy. So I just select all, hit my centered. And here's where it's a little different. So we're going to make this a little bigger and a little bold. So it kind of pops. Let me do it condensed here. And I'm using Universe because it has nice, you know, different options under the same typeface. Now, remember how we talked about, I don't know if you guys remember me talking about, make this, let's do it 12 by, let's see, let's do a little bit bigger, 14 by 18. I talked about line length being a problem. This will be a little bit too long, so I'm going to pull this in a little bit. Just make sure you're centering it. And that's why snap to if you have, go up to view and go to guides. If you have snap to document grid, or I'm sorry, snap to guides, smart guides selected, it's going to show you intuitively right here when you drag this where the center is. It's going to have like a little pink line there. Now I'm going to make this a little smaller, so I'm going to make this probably 10 by 14. 10 by 14 is always a nice ratio. Now, if I need to adjust things, like if I need to pull this down even more to create more space here, I can. Let's see how much copy I have left down here. It looks pretty good. And what I want to remember in your sample, and this example actually is a really kind of a good example to show you what not to do. It's nicely gridded out here, but there's not a lot of white space in between some of these elements, so it kind of runs together. The only big amount of white space is in between the health benefits in this first paragraph. So it's really nice to gain that white space, that visual pause. So what we want to do is we want to pull the headline closer to the copy so that you have more white space in the top, and that this headline connects to that body copy. Same thing down here. You want this same space to equal out the same space in between here. And that's just a nice visual pause to allow the viewer to understand that, yeah, this belongs together as a section. This belongs together as a section. And it's not all running together. So that's kind of, I can pull this down a little bit more. I'm going to keep this a little bit bigger and maybe even bold because it's a little different than all the rest of the type. It's kind of the, I don't want to say call out, but yeah, I guess extra information that you can look into. And then I just pulled this copy box in. So now I have a little bit of a bigger margin space here. The copy it's not as long when it gets too long. And I can actually do a shift return here and kind of make my own lengths depending on what I have going on here. Let me do a shift return here. See, that looks pretty good. Just pull this down a little bit. Yeah. So you have a nice white space framing the information. You kind of know what goes where. You have this grid structure set up. Yeah, so you can play around with this. You don't necessarily have to go this route. You can have the main image on the left side. And I don't want to show you too many things. You're going to be mad at me because you're going to be like, I was thinking about that. You know, but think about things like this where you can actually have it going this way. And maybe all of your copy goes this way. Now, I probably wouldn't do center aligned. I know. So, I mean, there's different ways you can do this. And I'm just going to leave it at that so you guys don't get like mad at me for trying different things. But I hope you can see from this, oh, here's a hyphen, that, you know, you can do different things, but make it work. And just as long as you have proximity, you have alignment, you have all that going on, it will definitely make your layout easier to read and flow. Now you definitely can do things. You were talking about like strokes around here to kind of, especially in this one, because this one doesn't have kind of like a defined outline because it goes to white. You can put a rule line around there, or like you said, you could put a drop shadow, and that would be under object. If you selected that and go up to object and go to effects, drop shadow, you can put a subtle, I would say nothing this dark. I would go a little bit subtle with that. So you can change that in here by lessening the distance and also the opacity, and just put a real subtle drop shadow on that. Now, if you do it to this one, you want to do it to the other ones. right? So you want to go to your effects window. Once you do that, this is how you can edit it. So if I select this, this box here, I'll see that this effects shows up in my effects panel. If I double click on that, that's where I can change it. So if I didn't want, I can change it there. Now, if I want it to be added to this one, you can easily go up to, I think it saves it up here, maybe not. No, you don't have to go through. I thought maybe you can copy paste it, but I guess you can't. You might have to go through the whole thing again. Interesting. Let me cancel that. Let me see if I can copy this. Oh, you can do an object style, yes. Yep. I forgot about that. Thank you. Totally forgot about that. So you can do a new object style. Thank you very much. And we'll do drop shadow. And drop shadow is selected here. It's been a long day. Click OK. And then you can just add that to all of these. If you wanted to add it to this, you might not see it unless it's kind of going in this angle, so you might not need to do that. You could even put it on, well, if you wanted to put on text, you probably have to go a different way. Oh, there we go. Actually, I thought maybe you couldn't apply it to text, but you can. If you did a drop shadow, I wouldn't put it on actual body copy. It might be hard to read, but maybe the actual headline might not be too bad. Yeah, I didn't know that either. I just kind of tried it and actually worked, so. There you go. And you can change the color, you know, if you want to go with something that's more related to what's being shown in the article. New stuff every day. There you go. See, we all can learn from each other sometimes too, right? A blueberry color. There you go. Pretty cool. Yeah, isn't that cool? I kind of took that from the strawberries. Pretty neat. All right, so when you're ready to go, I think the saving of this is you're just saving a, let me see here, let me read this, PDF. Yeah, so you don't even have to do a package. You just go File, PDF, do the smallest file size, that's fine, desktop save. The only thing I would recommend is just go ahead and click on that after you create it just to make sure it looks good. Sometimes we find surprises. Let me share my desktop here, hold on. I was sharing my desktop. There we go. Sometimes we find surprises in our PDFs after we look at them and we're like, oh, wait a second here, I got to change this. So this is the PDF that you would submit. Any questions about that? Oops, let me share my desktop again. Okay. All right. Now, when we were talking, now let me open up Photoshop while we're talking about this. I had earlier said about those images converted to TIFF, so I just wanted to show you. Oh, good. I'm glad you're excited. That makes me excited that you're excited. I'm a dork. It does. It makes me excited that you're excited. All right, so I'm going to open up Photoshop here and just show you real quick if you a really good thing to kind of keep in mind when you're starting a project and you're ready to get your images ready to go in there. This is what you typically do. There we go. Articles, editorial images. So these two images are the ones that I put in my editorial article. So these two images are the JPEGs that I just placed in there. Now, if you're doing this for a print magazine, you would open these up in Photoshop first, go up to image, image size, and I know this is going in print. It looks good. We would just check it, make sure the resolution is 300. This looks good. The only thing I need to do is go File, Save As, and save it as a TIFF under Format. And click Save. Now, the one thing that you will notice if you do this, the file size will be a lot larger because a JPEG is more condensed. So image size, this looks good. If it says 72, you would need to kind of type in resolution and see what the width and height are. If they look okay, then, you're good. But sometimes it can get really small and then you can't use the image in terms of the size. So just converting those to TIFF is typically what you do. Mac is fine, click OK. And then instead of the TIFF, you would go back to your document and you would open up. Let's see if I can actually open up just replace them. Yeah. Well, So just do Command D. I don't know where I place these actually, but might have to do a little digging here. Hold on, guys. Yeah, I think I put these like in, there we go, the runner TIFF. So it's instead of being, look how the size difference. So the JPEG is 1.7 megabytes and the TIFF is 20.8. So in this case, what I probably would do, right, it's really big, is I would get the size of what this square is. So let's go up to Window and go to Info. If I was really worried about size, it's only 3.5 by 3.5. So what I would do is I would go back to this image in Photoshop, go image size, and I would just scale this down to like 4. Now when you do that, the resolution gets larger. So what we need to do is just choose resample and then choose 300 and see how it went from 19.8 megabytes to 3.91. Yep. So that's how you would do that. And that's how you would make your files not be so huge, and click OK, and then you would save that. Same thing with this one. Let's go back to our box over here. How big was this? So the info box is great. You can see the width and the height of this object that I selected. So it's 3.6 by 4. So I would say don't go any less than 3.5. So I would definitely stick with at least 4, maybe a little bit more. So go to Photoshop, image size, and you could do a save as if you don't want to save over the image. And I would do 4.25 at 300. And it takes it from a 27.8 megabyte file to a 4.5 megabyte file. So huge differences there. Yes. So then you can go in and actually swap those out. And it's going to look the same. So, it's just going to be, you'll see it in here in your info. It'll change from a TIFF to a JPEG to a TIFF. And then obviously you'll see your file size not be as large. I'm like digging in here. Okay, here's my TIFF right here. Okay, so then it switches it to TIFF. That's ready for print purposes, this too. And go back and change this to the TIFF one right here. That's ready for print. So when you go to package again, instead of seeing the JPEGs in there, and you'll kind of want to look for this if you're designing for print, and you'll want to convert it to CMYK. I didn't even show you guys that either. So this is where I would check to say, okay, are these converted to CMYK? Because what you need to do for print, convert it to CMYK. So all you would do is go up to image mode, CMYK. I totally forgot about that. Image mode, CMYK, and this is in Photoshop. And those are the things you would check. Here, look at my see this little sign saying, hey, this file got swapped out. So all I need to do is double click on it to update it, and it updates it automatically. So now I can go to my info box and I can see it's a TIFF, 300 pixels per inch, CMYK, and I'm good. Double click on this little, hey, what's going on? It replaces it with that file. Now I know it's the right file with the right color space. All right. So that's pretty much what that's all about. And that's the good habit to get in once you kind of start printed publication work, because not all imagery comes to you ready to go. So I'm glad I was able to go over that, because that is the small details. Actually, they're big details to go over to make sure that your file's set. And if you have any of those things that aren't set right, typically you're welcome. You talk to your printer and they'll come back and they'll say, hey, listen, your images, they're not the right color space, or, they're not the right file type. So sometimes they'll catch it too. So it just means that, you need to revise it, which might be costly, or might be, I don't want to say embarrassing, but, something that you don't want to overlook either. Yeah. And it's just, and it happens. I've had many times where I'm like, I forgot to convert that, but it's just one of the things that you learn as you go forward. All right. And I know some of you haven't watched the first lecture yet. And I was saying, Jennifer, before you came in, we had I don't know if you were aware, but there you go. YouTube was down yesterday, so I wasn't able to process our lecture from yesterday as normally like I do. So I had to embed it in a different way. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to run that through normally like I would, replace that in there so you guys can have a regular link that you're used to, because YouTube is back up again. Because I think some of you guys are having issues viewing it, something about cookies and all that good stuff. So yeah. So I'll do that once we're done. Actually, I'm going to wrap it up tonight. If you want to show anything, have any questions, this is the time to do it now. If not, we'll wrap it up, and then I'll go ahead and start processing that first video, and then this one as well. There you go. Collaboration. Very good. You guys have any questions? You've been great, by the way. I had a lot of fun with you guys. All right. Thank you. You guys have a wonderful evening, and I'm excited to see what you guys come up with for this first week. Good luck. If you have any questions, reach out to me. Awesome. All right. Good night, guys. Oh, thanks, Jennifer. Have a great night.